And it's showtime, bro.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 305 Takes. And as always, it is another Football Friday here at 305 Takes. Me and Angel are going to be dissecting every game that we have this weekend for the NFL's divisional playoff matchups. It should be a pretty good weekend of football because I like some of these matchups. Me and Angel were discussing, who do we like as far as the underdogs right before we got on, and there might be some surprising picks for people. And honestly, I think it's a week that predictions might go out the window because I think a lot of these teams really are very well matched up. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down with Angel throughout this podcast. So let's get right to it.
Oh man, the best, arguably every year, the best weekend of football, and the one that I hate seeing this, the one you can't bet on because it's always this week that you don't know who wins.
Yeah, for example, last year we had the Cincinnati Bengals going into Arrowhead and beating the Kansas City Chiefs when it looked like it was going to be a blowout at halftime, and they righted the ship from halftime and went on to go to the Super Bowl. So this is a week where, and last year we also had the 49ers going into Lambeau and beating Aaron Rodgers, the MVP. So let's see
Oh,
what
and
happens.
Bucks Rams.
Yeah, let's see what happens this weekend because like you said, yeah, I think this is a weekend you really can't bet on. I'd probably mostly look at player
Futures.
props if you're interested because I just don't really know what the outcomes are going to be in these games. And a lot of them have pretty big point spreads. I mean, the one I was looking at to start off with is I thought, but I just don't know if it's too easy. I thought put in a teaser with Kansas City, Cincinnati, because I got it up. I took it 6.5. I put a little bit on it just because, I thought
It's
I
not
thought it
bad
would
with
I
it
thought
being
it would
8.5 as a
yeah,
different one.
yeah, I took Kansas City down to -2 for me and Cincinnati up to +11. So I mean I kind of like the Bengals in this game, but let's get to the games in order as we'll start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars off their surprising and come from behind victory over the Los Angeles Chargers will now face the number one seed in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead on Saturday at 4:30. And for this game, I think the biggest matchup will be, can Kansas City get enough pressure that it causes Mahomes to throw the ball a second before he wants to, or just makes him uncomfortable in the pocket? Because this, like a lot of the matchups that we had last year, or last week, this is a matchup that we did have in the regular season as Jacksonville went to Kansas City in week 10 and lost 27-17, 9.5 point spread. So almost exactly what we have going into this weekend. But I think Jacksonville's played a lot better since then. And
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be something said to what happened last week with LA because I do think that Kansas City does have the potential, especially because they will be playing at home. They had the bye to really jump out to a really early lead in the first half. But seeing what Jacksonville did last week and how they handled that comeback, I don't think that they're just going to lay down. Like I think they're going to be like, we just did this a week ago, we can do it again.
Yeah, Jacksonville has confidence, so that is a scary trait to have, and it's only them on the road now. They know it's them against Kansas City, so I mean that could be a recipe to beat them, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I have the Chiefs winning this game. I mean, mainly for a simple fact it is my Super Bowl pick, so I'm gonna ride with my Super Bowl picks to go all the way to the end. But I just it is gonna be a different team now because Jacksonville has played much better since week 10. And hopefully this time at least, maybe when they cause some turnovers from the Chiefs, they can get more than just a field goal. Because I think they caused 3 turnovers in that game against the Chiefs. And they only come out with a field goal, which hurt them a lot. If they could at least got maybe 10 points, that definitely would have helped. And it wouldn't have been a 10-point game. It would have been a one possession game the whole time. But I also think now Kansas City knows like, hey, these guys, they are almost the comeback kings. Obviously, that title belonged to the Vikings this year because of all those fourth quarter wins and one score victories that they had. But I do feel like Kansas City won't take them lightly because right now the, the Jaguars are almost there. They're just probably like a year or two away from truly being Super Bowl contenders because I do feel like they're missing some pieces. But overall, I feel like this should be a solid game. I I don't mind the spread, but if I had to put like I would say a score on it, if I had to say anything, I'm gonna say Chiefs 34, Jags 27. Because I do think the Jags will make it a game. It's mainly in the second half because they have been known to play great football in the second half. But I feel like the Chiefs will also be scoring back and forth in the second half as well.
Yeah, and so just some stats for this Jacksonville defense that was really on a tear the last 5 games of the season. So they forced 11 turnovers and led the league in pressures with 114 over the last 5 regular season games. They allowed only 315 of total yards and 15 points per game over that 5 game stretch. And then last week, they were able to sack Justin Herbert 3 times, and they got a hit on him 10 different times as he dropped back to pass. The only problem is the first week, the first time they matched up against Kansas City, they weren't able to do very much of anything. They got quarterback hits on Mahomes 4 times, 0 sacks, and he completed 26 of 35 passes for 331 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that is tough when you look back at it, but just based on how they're playing, and I honestly think like they're at the point where it's like, why not us? Like it's just like, all right, no one's really picking us to win. We were down. Our quarterback threw 4 interceptions in the first half last week, and we still came back to win. Obviously, that one was at home. This game will be on the road, but I mean, this is a Chiefs team that is led by Andy Reid, and Andy Reid, for as great of an offensive mind as he is, and he's really put together some of the best offenses that we've seen over his, tenure as a coach, but there are some bad playoff losses on his resume and as the number 1 overall seed too. So
Yeah. His teams get
that
off with slow starts.
and sometimes you'll be like, what is going on in these games? Like are they serious right now? Like, and we've seen this with the Chiefs too, where it's like, why are they not beating this team by 14 points right now? Like we saw that Texans game earlier this year. Like there are moments where you look at this team and you're like, are they just messing around out there? Like, are they taking this serious? But with the extra week and the fact that it's Mahomes, and I think he really wants to go back to the Super Bowl and lead this offense and be able to put up numbers considering how they lost last year to the Bengals at home
Yep.
and with the Tyreek Hill trade this offseason. So I do think it'll be an interesting matchup, but like you said, I just don't really see a way that this Chiefs team loses this game. As far as the point spread and stuff, I would honestly stay away from it because, like I said, I truly think the one that I do like is anything Kansas City first half I would take because I really do think that they're probably going to jump out ahead early. But like I said, for overall point spread for that game, I would stay away from because I think why would Jacksonville, kind of lay down? I
Yeah.
think they're going to start airing the ball out, if anything. And that's kind of what they did in the second half last week. And they have the weapons to be able to move the ball, whether
Yeah.
it's Zay Jones, whether it's Christian Kirk, whether it's Evan Ingram, they definitely have the weapons to move the ball. Travis Etienne was good for them last week as well. So, and then I could see it where Kansas City gets up to a big lead and they're like, all right, let's, try to preserve some clock. Let's not be the Chargers. Let's actually run the ball. And if, that's not working and, they go 2 drives without being able to put up any points on the board, that's when your, +8.5, -8.5 will go away there.
Well, I mean, they do have the backs. Pacheco is looked good. And then they also have McKinnon. I like any prop bet of McKinnon anytime touchdown. I would take that because he's been a real big vocal point in the offense. And if they can't really necessarily run the ball, at least they can do some passes to at least get the running backs in open space. So that way they can try to get that first down. So I do think the Chiefs can control this game, but it's like you said, it comes down to the Chiefs now getting to such a slow start. To me, if the Chiefs don't get to a slow start, they should win this game by 10 points. They should win because they're just that good. And it's nothing against Jacksonville. I just feel like they're a year or two away. Once they get Calvin Ridley back in, and I feel like if this offseason they do re-sign Evan Ingram and address more to the defense and the offensive line, I feel like Jacksonville could definitely be a Super Bowl contender. But just right now at the moment, I don't think they're ready yet. And now this is going to be different. They're not going to be playing in Jacksonville. They're going to be playing in Arrowhead. Arrowhead is loud. It's going to be loud. Obviously, they're going to go to silent count. And Trevor Lawrence talked about like he doesn't expect it to be that loud, but no, I mean the stadium was counted as the loudest stadium ever in NFL history. So who knows? Maybe they might get some false starts. It might be like maybe a 12 man like
Yeah, because
effect.
Trevor Lawrence gave the fans some ammunition. He said, I can't imagine Arrowhead Stadium will be much louder than our fans were here on Saturday. But
Which
honestly,
yeah, like I don't blame him because he was like supporting his fans, like he's
yeah,
supporting his fan base. Cool. But also that's gonna trigger some fans like in
yeah,
the wrong way. But it's also
yeah,
like you said, it's just ammo for them to use.
yeah. And the only other thing is that we have to remember this game is going to be played on a Saturday, and Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback. That's
Yep.
that's the only thing we have to remember because Trevor Lawrence has the undefeated streak going back to high school and in college, and last week's game was on a Saturday as well. So I mean, maybe he pulls another rabbit out of the hat because he
Oh
really
man.
needed that last week. But here we
He's
are
already my
with
Super
Trevor
Bowl pick
Lawrence
is
playing on
done.
another Saturday.
Yeah, bro. If he does that, my Super Bowl pick is done. I'll be like, oh man, nope. There goes my Super Bowl winner. But
It,
I'm
it it would be
hoping for a
incredible
good
if the
game.
Jaguars returned to the AFC Championship after being there just a few years ago.
And imagine how much praise Doug Peterson's gonna get for taking on this job and how the development he helped with Trevor Lawrence. That's gonna
Yeah.
put him up there in terms of like coaching ranks.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And the fact that I mean, he's had some crazy playoff wins
Yeah.
now that we've had time to digest his career. And I mean, he won a Super Bowl over Belichick and Brady
He had a good game
with a
against
backup quarterback.
yep. The game against Atlanta in the playoff game. Atlanta almost won that game and they squeaked out with the win, but they got that win. Then there was also the Bears game, the double doink.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
He
set
has,
back the whole Bears franchise, man.
but I
Oh,
mean we'll see because the other guy, like you said, there's a guy named Patrick Mahomes, and that guy he's really good.
yeah,
He's
he's
really
different. He's different, and like I said, I really think that the team and him personally are going to be super motivated going into this game.
yep. But I mean, hey, hopefully we'll see. But we got two good coaches, and I mean, it just sucks that none of those two coaches are going to be fighting for Coach of the Year because that belongs to the other matchup.
Yep. So let's go. Let's get to it. We got the fighting Brian Dayballs and the New York Giants going to Philadelphia to play the number one seed in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. And this one, I mean, I don't, I it's for me personally, I'm not gonna full out say it's gonna be an upset, but I'm not discounting the Giants. I'm not discounting the Giants at all in this game. And, so the Giants played the Eagles at home on in week 14. And the Eagles absolutely dominated that game, winning 48-22. And I believe posting here, I'll get you the exact stats. I believe they had over 300 yards rushing in that game. They had 31 carries for 253 yards for 8.2 yards per carry in that game.
Quick question: how many carries did Boston Scott have?
I know he scored a touchdown.
Yeah,
He
bro,
had 6 carries for 33 yards and a touchdown.
that's the Giants' killer, bro.
Yeah, man. A touchdown, I believe, in 5 straight games against them. But see, this is where I am questionable. So their second matchup was the last week of the season. It was week 18. And the Giants were already basically locked into a playoff spot, and they didn't play really any of their starters. And surprisingly, they
They only
hung
lost by
in with the
6.
Eagles. 22-16 was the final score in that game, and that was with a bunch of basically third stringers and practice squad guys playing in that game. So I think there is something to that. And this Eagles team, I hate to say it, I think they kind of peaked early. Like I
Yeah,
think we saw the best of them early, and now I get that Lane Johnson is going to try to play in this game, but he has a torn groin. Like how painful does that sound? A torn groin, and now your job is to protect the quarterback. Like that would be the last thing I'd be worried about. I'd be
yeah.
worried about not re-injuring myself.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to worry about, and it's kind of like you said. The Eagles haven't played their best. It could be like you said, they peaked a little too early because their defense, like they haven't been playing that good ever since the Cowboys game in Dallas. They just simply have not played good, and then their offense, obviously, once Jalen Hurts injured his shoulder, the offense like has it didn't look good in the last time they played. Obviously, now he has more rest, so that does help him. But like you said, I it's hard to count out this Giants team because this is gonna be the third time they're playing, and it is so difficult to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. It is difficult. So I can't count out the Giants and Daniel Jones. I said it on Monday. I mean, he made me eat my words. I called the guy trash to start the year, and he hasn't played bad. He's actually played really well this year. I mean, he has over 700 yards rushing. That's incredible for a quarterback. And in the game against the Vikings, we could arguably say out of his whole career, that's his best game. His best game, and they're riding hot. They have confidence. But man, I just feel like at the end of the day, this might come back down to talent. Because in the playoffs, it's obviously anything can happen on any given Saturday or Sunday whenever teams play. But sometimes it still comes down to who has the better team. And I mean, man, if I had to put a score, 28-24 Eagles. That's what I'll go with. I feel like the Giants will keep it a close game, but I just feel they're gonna take a field goal in one drive that they should have gone for a touchdown, and that will be the difference in the game. That will be to me because I like the Giants. I feel like they are great at running the football, passing the ball. I do have to take last week's game with a little bit of grain of salt for the simple fact it is the Vikings, and the Vikings are just simply not good on defense. They're just they're
But I do
bad.
think you can pass on this Philadelphia defense.
I don't
I,
know, man. James Bradbury and Darius Slay have had very good years. I understand they've been like not great the past couple of games, but we still have to go like, hey, those are what wide receiver do we have that generally could beat them one on one?
I do get that. I do get that. But when we look at um, the season stats for this year, so in that game, the second game against Dallas with Dak and Gardner Minshew playing in that game, Dak went 27 to 35, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Um, in the game against the Titans earlier in the season, they gave up that big play to Trayvon Burks, which I mean they obviously smacked him in the end zone, and that kind of changed the whole projection of that game in that one. But Tannehill had a decent game in that one. We saw in
Oh
that
well, the
Monday night
Saints
game
game.
against the Packers where they were giving up some chunk plays in that one too. So I do think you can pass on this Philadelphia defense. I just my concern would be if I was a Giants fan, are they going to be able to block for Daniel Jones?
Yeah,
That would be my biggest concern because
it's
if they're
gonna,
not able to block for him, then
it's gonna be tough. It's
it's
gonna be
going
tough.
to be tough. And but I have to say, I mean, Saquon's been on a stretch so far.
He's been
Over
amazing.
literally since that last Eagles lost, not the last week, but the week after that, he's been averaging 13.3 carries in the 4 games since that stretch, and has been averaging 5.3 yards per carry, and has gotten more involved in the pass catching game. 20 catches for 136 yards. So I do get you about the lack of talent in the Giants wide receiver room, but I mean, guys like Isaiah Hodgins, he stepped up last week. I get it that it's not the best Viking secondary, but they have guys that are going to make plays, and I think Dayball is a really really good coach, and he's going to be able to scheme up getting guys open. And I just think this Giants team is kind of cooking with fire right now. I mean, even Kenny Galladay, who's been, you know, talked
Oh
about
yeah,
all
the block.
year, but yeah, the huge bust of a contract, but he threw an absolutely mean block after basically being benched and sent off into purgatory. He's still involved, and I just think this whole team, even Darius Slayton, he had that big drop at the end that pretty much would have put the game on ice. Dayball was the first one to go up to him and tell him not to worry about it, that they got him. And I just, and when you look at how that defensive line played last week with Dexter Lawrence. They got Darius Leonard back.
Mm-hmm.
And they got Thibodeau on the outside, and now you're dealing with. I get it's a really good Eagles offensive line, but you're dealing with a banged up Lane Johnson. And do we know if Hurts is 100%?
Yeah, no. If I'm the Giants' defensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, like my concern would just be don't let Jalen Hurts fall. Just keep hitting him every time he gets to someone else come and just hit him and keep hitting him and keep hitting him. But I also feel like that will be key for Jalen Hurts too. I feel like the first play of the game, Jalen Hurts has to get hit and kind of show that, yeah, I am healthy to, maybe kind of put somewhat of a scare or like put into the Giants like it's game on. I feel like that can help definitely morale for the Eagles. But man, it should be a solid game. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be like the best game of the weekend because I think we both kind of agree. The next game we talk about will be the best game of the weekend. But this should be good because I mean, these guys know each other. If you want to talk about like which teams have the most on each other, it has to be these two. The Eagles and the Giants, same division. You've already played each other twice this year. You play twice against each other every year. You have to always see each other, play each other. You know each other's strengths. You know each other's weaknesses. And obviously now the Giants are a different team than the first time they met this year in MetLife. And a little bit different since the last game of the season. So I do feel like it should be there, but I mean, I don't like saying this for Giants because I understand it's a cool story and a lot of people are going to make comparisons to them to the '07 team. But I just don't know. The '07 team, at least they had like weapons. They had Plaxico Burst. They had an Amani Toomer. They had a Steve Smith, not Steve Smith Sr., Steve Smith, who out of USC, who was a very good possession receiver. Like I think, like what 2 seasons had over 100 catches for 2 seasons. So it shows that he was great with the football. And then you had a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Eli Manning, and you had running backs of Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs. So there was weapons there to at least help Eli. At least with Daniel Jones, he does have Saquon, and some guys have stepped up. So I am curious to see, but right now, I don't like doing this to them because I think it's a cool story for them. But I think the Eagles will end the Giants season this weekend.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm not too confident in it. I mean, if you absolutely made me pick, I'm gonna go Eagles just because number one seed, they are playing at home. I do think overall
It
they
does
have more
help a bit.
talent. Yeah, and I think overall they are the more talented team, but I just think this Giants team, one is really tough.
They are,
Two, they
man.
have
They are
a
tough as
really,
nails.
really good coach. And three, I just think a lot of the momentum is on their side. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the momentum.
That
They're
game against the Vikings was huge for their momentum to go into Philadelphia.
and they're getting a lot of their guys back. I mean, Dexter Lawrence had been out the last couple of weeks, or not Dexter Lawrence.
Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams had been out the last couple of weeks. Dory Jackson had been out the last couple of weeks. He had a great game against Justin Jefferson. They got Xavier McKinney back, their safety. So
They're getting
I
healthy at the right time.
yeah, that it just adds to the momentum I think that they have collectively as a team with the guys that they're getting back who are key contributors and honestly some of their best players on defense. So I really do like this game. I'm glad it's on Saturday night so we can kind of know going into the weekend. But I it really wouldn't surprise me if the Giants pull it off. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I thought with Daniel Jones, there was no. First off, I didn't think Daniel Jones could lead a team to the playoffs. That's the first thing I got wrong. And even if he led the team to the playoffs, I thought it would have been a situation where maybe he's throwing the ball 12 times a game. But that after last week, that's not what happened. He absolutely balled. So I have to give this organization a lot of credit. They proved me wrong in a lot of ways. And honestly, I'm not counting them out for this one.
Yeah, we can't count him out. Brian Dable has proved something, and I think it kind of locked. I thought last week locked for sure. Coach of the year, because bro, Daniel Jones was awesome in that game. Like he was awesome. He had over 100, like 80 yards rushing, had over 300 yards passing. Hodgins was good. Saquon Barkley had a very good game, and like you said, they shut down Justin Jefferson, which is like this guy was on a tear
Yeah.
for a long time. But It should. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
solid
held
game,
him. He still got 7 catches, but for only 47 yards.
and 5 of those catches came in the first drive.
I think any Giants fan would have signed up for that stat line before the
Yeah,
game if he would have told them that's what it was going to be.
man. So, but you gotta love it. And it's kind of crazy. A divisional matchup in the divisional round of the playoffs.
And it's crazy that we've gotten so many repeat matchups
Yeah,
just in this playoff stretch alone.
and it's
That's the part that
crazy.
trips me out is that even the Jaguars Chiefs game, like that's just a random, not same division, nothing, just two AFC teams, and now they're playing in the divisional round. It honestly has tripped me out a little bit. But we can go ahead and move on to our next topic. But before we do, we'd like to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, E2G Sports, as they take care of everything behind the scenes for us on the podcast over here at 305 Takes. We've been working with them throughout this football season. So we're always grateful for everything that they do for us behind the scenes and putting together the show. E2G Sports has you covered at e2gsports.com for any additional sporting news that you are looking for, as they have you covered on NBA, MLB, NFL news that you are looking for more coverage outside of this podcast. So head over to E2G Sports for any additional sporting news. But Angel, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming and let's move on to our Sunday games. And so we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Buffalo Bills. And let's just get the elephant out of the room as we start. This was the matchup we were supposed to have week 17. And then the DeMar Hamlin situation happened. The game was suspended at a score of 7-3, with the Bengals scoring an opening drive touchdown and the Bills coming back, getting down to the red zone, settling for a field goal. And then the Hamlin situation happened. The game was suspended, ultimately canceled altogether, leading to this matchup, which I'm still kind of confused how the Bengals are 13-4 and the Bills are 13-3, and the game that could have given the Bills their fourth loss was suspended. And only next
Yeah,
week's game is the one that's going to be played in a dome.
I
If
think I think it was because maybe they looked at their division records. They probably looked at Buffalo's division record. They were like, okay, Buffalo has a better record against their own division than Cincinnati. So I think that's what gave them that 2 seed.
But is that even true?
I'm not sure because I know
Because
they
the
lost
Bills
it.
lost to the Dolphins, they
They
beat the
they
Patriots
lost one game
twice,
to the Jets.
and they lost one to the
So
Jets.
they
Here, I
went
have
four
the
and two.
okay, and the
No, my bad.
Bengals.
They went the yeah, one win against the Jets, one win against the Dolphins, 2 wins against so they went 4-2.
And then the Bengals, they lost to the Steelers. So that's one loss.
They lost to the
And
Ravens.
they lost to the Ravens once. They lost to the Browns.
So yeah, 3 wins.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, three
yeah.
wins they didn't get. So yeah, uh, so
I
I
guess
mean,
that makes sense. But yeah, if I was a Bengals supporter, I'd be a little peeved off about that. I mean, it is hard to kind of put it all into context when you consider we were all very concerned for the safety of a
yeah,
player leaving
a
that game.
human's
So
life was in
yeah,
danger.
yeah, there was things more important than that at the moment. But this is basically the same script for the Cincinnati Bengals as we saw last year,
Yeah,
and me and Angel were talking about it. It's kind of crazy how the Bengals went into this offseason and they were like, Joe Burrow really got hit a lot on the way to the Super Bowl run, huh? We should probably do something about fixing this offensive line. Oh, our whole left side of our offensive line is out going into our first playoff matchup. Oh, we just lost Jonah Williams in the first half of that matchup too. So
and it's
now we're
like, oh
down
wow,
three offensive linemen
so
going into the
2/5 of
divisional
our
round.
line of our offensive line going into week one is still playing right now. Oh, that's
And
great.
then you look on the flip side, the Bills were like, okay, we have a Super Bowl window. The thing we need to improve at is getting after the quarterback. So what do? They draft Greg Rousseau. They draft Boogie Basham. They sign Von Miller. Von Miller is not available for this game. Greg Rousseau's the only pass rusher that they have out of all four of their starting defensive linemen that even ranks in the top 15 of pass rusher win weight. So it's not like they're dominant on that side either, which makes me think this might be the game with the upset.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely thinking that too. It's just Man, it's not that I don't like this, but to get first things out of the way, it's kind of crazy that we got this matchup again
Yeah.
when last week we both know it is. I think, and 95% of the people can agree with this. If Lamar Jackson and Tua played, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills are at home this weekend, while the Miami Dolphins would have played Kansas City, and then the Baltimore Ravens will be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. That would have been the playoffs if two quarterbacks were healthy enough to play in those games. But that's a part. But to go back to the regular game now with the Bills and the Bengals, they kind of have unfinished business to settle in a sense. And man, I really want to pick the Bengals in this because I do not like the way how the Bills have been playing the last month or so, and especially last week against the Dolphins. Nothing against the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson, but Skylar Thompson was not good in any other game. He really wasn't. And Skylar Thompson actually played like fairly well. Like I was like, he's not playing bad. He's not like losing the football. The only like bad part I thought of the whole game was that he was snapping the ball so close to when the snap clock was about to go to hit zero. So that was probably it. And the Dolphins came back and they made that Buffalo offense like look shaky. And we've talked about it all year. The Dolphins defense, they're just not good. They were not good after being so good for a 2-year stretch. So, but I feel like with the motivation, and I feel like maybe DeMar Hamlin might be at the game, and that would give the Bills the motivation they need to win. So I feel like that's why I don't like doing this again. I'm gonna pick the home team. I'm gonna pick Buffalo just because I feel the DeMar Hamlin motivation will be so big for this team that they're gonna really want to truly win this game for DeMar Hamlin.
And he's been around the guys all week at their facility, so I do think he's going to be somehow involved in the pregame, maybe leading the guys out into the tunnels. Something I think is going to happen before the game, just to give the guys that added motivation and have the emotional scenes. And it is crazy that it's going to be against the Cincinnati Bengals, but roles reverse with them being the home team. But the thing that I'm curious about is this Bills offense is a little suspect, and
They
we've
turn
been
over the
talking about
ball.
it a lot with just how Josh Allen's play has been really up and down since that injury. The wide receiver room is not as good as I thought it
It's
is.
Diggs or bust.
It's really digs or bust. Okay, good, because I have conflicting feelings on Gabe Davis because for one, he does get in the end zone, which like I can't dispute. Like I see him catch the ball in the end zone. But like, does he do anything else?
Yeah. Does he get open on anywhere that's not in the end zone? That's a genuine question.
And then the thing that confused me is they signed Beasley like just out of nowhere right at the end of the season, and then presumably that's because they knew Isaiah McKenzie was going to be banged up going into last week. So Beasley plays, and then they play the Shakur kid who literally stole his name from Tupac, and he's I believe from Appalachian State or Boise State, one of these random schools. Which no disrespect, and I believe 5th-round pick, but that's really who's your starting slot receiver, or Cole Beasley,
Yeah.
who was on the waiver wire. So that's the other thing. And then what really surprised me last week with what made me think of that about the wide receiver room is that the Dolphins were not afraid of blitzing and leaving undrafted play outside of Xavier Jones. It was basically undrafted players covering these receivers. They weren't afraid of the matchups. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
No.
And when you look at the stats, so Josh Allen's, according to PFF, Josh Allen's passer rating as a against the blitz and not against the blitz is 30 points difference. So his passing grade against the blitz this year is 64.6, including the playoffs. His passer grade when he's not blitz, 90.7.
I guess
90.7.
the
And
Brian Daboll effect is real.
And I seen that. I saw some meme today about how much his turnovers have increased since then and how much Daniel Jones have decreased since Brian Daboll. But this was last week against the Dolphins. When he was not blitzed, he had a passing grade of 90.9. He was 15 to 24, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and had an adjusted completion percentage of 72.7. When he was blitzed, 51.2 passing grade, 8 of 15, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, another turnover when the fumble happened, and his adjusted completion percentage was 57.1.
I mean, dang, it's
So I do wonder how this impacts the Bengals because they really weren't getting after the Ravens at all. And
that's actually
um
pretty sad. That's
it,
pretty
which
sad.
which is and it wasn't like Huntley was like it wasn't like they were pass rushing to avoid to keep Huntley in the pocket. Like that's just how it happened to
Homie
work
was
out. It
running
wasn't
on his own goodwill.
yeah, it wasn't like, oh, let's keep him in so he doesn't break the pocket, which is that's the other concern with Josh Allen because his um his rushing touchdowns predominantly come against the blitz. He's able to escape the pocket, break a couple tackles, maybe hurdle a guy or two, and then next thing you know, he's running around in your secondary. But the only thing is that I don't know if you can leave Eli Apple anywhere near one-on-one coverage with Stephon Diggs. That's
Uh,
the problem. So, like, all
Nothing
the
against.
blitzing stats might be great,
Yeah.
and it might sound like a great idea on paper until you see 14 lined up against against Eli Apple.
I mean, we kind of laughed about it last year with Tyreek, but Eli Apple did good
I mean, but then he got burned. He
by
gave up
Cooper
freaking
Cup.
and then yes, last week in the Cincinnati game, who was the receiver that hit the slant go, the sluggo on him, and it was Huntley's longest touchdown
Oh
pass of his
yeah,
career.
Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, like come on,
This
come
guy was
on,
the fourth string on the Chiefs.
bro. He was literally practice squad this year until all the Ravens freaking receivers got injured. So I'm very interested to see how this one works. I personally, if this is the one that I plan on betting. I think the line is a little bit too high. I mean, 5.5 points. Like to me, this feels like a field goal game. This feels just like a field goal game to me. And you have to factor in that I think Cincinnati is going to be trying until the last second, until the clock hits zero. I think
Yeah,
Joe Burrow is going to be dropping back to pass, trying to at least even the score up or put some more points on the board.
yeah. I feel like that's also the crazy part. These two are kind of evenly matched. Whatever is the Bengals' weakness right now could be their offensive line, and we can say right now the Bills' their weakness is the defensive line. So it can that kind of meshes up, and then you have the Bengals who don't have the best secondary, but right now we're looking at the Bills' wide receiver room. Outside of it being Diggs, it's like okay, who else can step up? So now it truly might come down to the quarterbacks. Who's going to lead their team? Will it be Joe Burrow, who's we could probably say one of the coolest dudes and probably the internet's favorite quarterback? Because everyone loves Joe Burrow. Or is it going to be Josh Allen, who came into the year? The Bills were Super Bowl favorites. A lot of people were taking the Bills. A lot of people, even including myself, thought Josh Allen was going to win MVP.
Yeah.
Like now it's kind of like going up in flames for them because next year his contract kicks in, his contract extension where he's going to be involved for a lot of money. So that Bills window to win a Super Bowl is kind of closing now
Yeah,
because
100%.
once his contract kicks in, there's going to be a lot of players that they can't pay. And they're going to have to say, it's not that we don't want to keep you. We just can't. So yeah, man. So like, man, I really want to pick the Bills just because of the DeMar Hamlin effect, but I'll stick with it. I'm gonna say the Bills win this 28-27.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I really do think it's going to be a close game, and I struggled with the fact that if the Bengals don't get that fumble, like, do they lose that game? Like, I
They,
do struggle
they
with that
lose the
fact.
game.
Like,
Huntley was gonna score.
I do struggle with that, but it's also like we knew the Ravens were going to do that. Like, they weren't going to lay down. They kind of had some motivation, like all the
Plus, it's
players
also a
individually.
divisional opponent. It was their third
Yeah,
time playing each
yeah.
other.
The Ravens had the motivation of like, oh, you think we can only win if we have Lamar? Like, let's show you what we can do. And like you said, it's their third time playing each other, and it's a big rivalry. So like, it's not like they were going to lay down either way. But I also feel like the Bengals looked like they were really, really prepared for that Monday Night Football game against the Bills. Like that opening
Yeah,
drive
they
was
were.
really good.
They were driving the ball down the field before the incident happened.
Both times, yeah. When they got the opening drive, and then the drive that that the injury happened with Hamlin. So that's my other thing. And we've seen the Bengals defense. Okay, you might be able to score on them, but they're kind of bend don't break. Like, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do the in
Yeah,
game adjustments. We saw last year against the Chiefs. They decided to rush only three people and
drop
drop
eight.
everybody back into coverage. So that that is kind of what scares me. But I'm gonna do it.
You're
I'm
picking the
taking
Bengals.
I'm taking Bengals 28-24.
We're close. We both have
Yeah.
the winning team
I
scoring
think it's gonna be
28.
really close. I think it's gonna be really close game.
Man, it's gonna be. This has to be the best game of the week, and I feel like the only bad part if Cincinnati wins this game, they basically go to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game if the Chiefs win that game. And then if the Chiefs win, like again, the Chiefs win their game and Buffalo wins, now they go to Atlanta. They go to Atlanta for basically a
And
neutral
that's gonna
site.
be crazy. That's just
AFC.
gonna be crazy. It's gonna
You
be like
know what?
100-100.
I really wanted the neutral site. I wanted to be the Raiders stadium.
That would be cool. I also saw if they did it at the big house where University of Michigan plays. Because
Oh,
I saw that
that
one
would
of
have
them.
been cool.
Right? How cool would that have been? And it's a huge stadium. You could have had fans from both teams packed in there, but who
Yeah.
knows what the weather would have been. So,
And
like,
also travel.
yeah, that well, because one of the options was Ford Field, which the Bills have already played 2 games, one as a home
Yeah.
team, one as a away team, but it's booked. I want to
Yeah.
know who's at Ford Field next weekend that they couldn't reschedule it for a possible AFC Championship game. But another thing I kind of wanted to bring up with the Chiefs when we were talking about that game, outside of the motivation of like, all right, I want to still have a good offense without Tyreek Hill, like the Chiefs kind of have to figure out what's going to go on here, because we had the dynasties. There's previous Pittsburgh Steelers dynasties, Dallas Cowboys dynasties, San Francisco 49ers dynasties. Most recently, we had
The
the
Patriots.
the Patriots dynasty with Brady. But right now with the Chiefs, we're at 2 appearances, 1 win, and a coach that has had a history of, you could say, he chokes sometimes in big games. So that's just something I have in the back of my mind. If they lose this one, what does this mean for the future of what we thought at one time could have been a dynasty? Just something to ponder as we move forward and when we see the results of this Chiefs game. But now that we have our final scores and we've discussed the Bengals versus the Bills, let's move on to the last game that we have this weekend. And it's a game that features 2 of the marquee franchises in the NFL, teams that have a huge playoff resume against one of each other. One of the biggest playoff moments ever, the catch with Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone, was the 49ers defeating the Cowboys at home, which is basically the matchup we have this week with Dallas traveling to San Francisco. And I mean, I just hate to do it. I feel like this basically just comes down to, do we think Purdy is going to, is he going to shit the
Yeah.
bed? Like,
I'm
is this where the clock hits zero on?
No, the magic for Purdy.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say this. You saw the whole game, right, between Seattle and San Francisco?
Yeah.
Didn't you kind of notice in the first half Brock Purdy was taking all these chances and it was just not panning out?
I don't think he was good in the first half.
Yeah, he
I don't
wasn't
think he was
good.
good at
And
all.
then
Yeah.
in the second half, I want everyone to notice this. We all know how great of a play caller Kyle Shanahan is. I truly believe he dummied down the playbook so that way Brock Purdy's like, no, you have to throw to this guy. Because he did not target Debo in the first half. He rarely took it was mainly to Ayuk, and that's it. And so I feel like Kyle really dummied down that playbook in the second half that's when he kind of just went off and did all of that. Because people are saying he played good. I feel like Kyle really dumbed down that playbook and said, no, you're only going to do this play, this play, this play, this play, and this play. And that's what I felt happened because Seattle played way better than them in the first half. And Geno Smith, we can say, was the better quarterback for the first half. And obviously the second half, the 49ers defense did amped up the pressure and they really got after him. So that's just to me. But Man, you know what's the worst part? Last year we even talked about it going into the game of 49ers Cowboys. We both picked the 49ers to win that game last year. And I hate to say this, bro. I feel like Dallas ends the drought. I feel like Dallas can definitely go on to this NFC Championship game because everyone's already doubting them again. Everyone doubted them, including us going into Tampa. And what happened? They demolish the Buccaneers, rightfully so, because Tampa's just a terrible football team. And now everyone's kind of doubting it. They're like, they're not going to beat the 49ers. There's no way they're going to do it. Dak this, Dak that, Ezekiel this. All they have to do is that the 49ers offense is so good. I mean, we had to give Dallas some credit because for a good period of like time for this year, we kind of said outside the Eagles, like the Cowboys should be up there to like as favorites to win the NFC.
I just don't know if it's too much. Like like we all thought that the Bucks team was terrible this year. Like I stupidly thought they would win just because of Brady, but we all knew that this Bucks team was terrible. Like we'd seen it for weeks and weeks and weeks. So because the Cowboys, who we all consider to be a talented team, and if it wasn't for playoff or division seeding, meaning that you get a higher seed, they would have hosted that game. And I just don't know if like we should, if we're overestimating them for essentially taking care of business, but I also just don't know on the flip side, like when does it happen for Purdy? And to your point, like I don't think he played well in the first half. And I don't know if it was just because of playoff jitters, and then he settled down in the second half, or like you said, I don't know if it's Shanahan just kind of dummy down the system. But I mean, they've been on such a magical ride. They've averaged 36 points a game with Brock Purdy as their quarterback and
Yeah,
6 starts with Brock Purdy as their quarterback. So,
they haven't lost a game since they lost to the Chiefs.
and but then you look at this Dallas defense, and I'm very curious to see how Kyle Shanahan and this offense attacks them, because we know that they can generate pressure. They can get after the quarterback. I mean, that's
And
probably the most shook we've ever seen Brady in a game, which is saying something considering that the key way to beat him is by having a good pass rush. But
the
I've never
defensive
seen
coordinator
him
for the
not.
Cowboys was the head coach for the Falcons, where Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, he was. He worked under Dan Quinn, and they faced off against each other a couple of times when they were in the NFC West against each other. And um, there's this video circulating of Richard Sherman on a podcast this week saying that Shanahan specifically designed plays against Seattle that broke the rules of Dan Quinn's defense. So like they were having to go back to the sideline and change the rules for the defense they had been using all season because of how well Kyle Shanahan understood that defense and was able to exploit it. So, that's also my other thing is I think the 49ers have the better coach in this matchup, and I think they have the better weapons offensively because of the versatility that you have with Debo and CMC basically being interchangeable, and the fact that they have a healthy George Kittle I don't think can be overstated. And I don't think he's the greatest receiver, but he makes plays, except that he dropped probably the best pass Purdy will ever throw in his career. Brandon
Yeah,
Ayuk. I think that I think they're a little bit more talented on offense, and especially I think the offensive line is going to do well enough to hold up against the Micah Parsons of the world and not have the pressure get to Purdy, because I do think that if Dallas can get after Purdy and he starts running around and running backwards and trying to
Dallas
avoid
should
four
win the
defensive
game if
linemen
that
before
happens.
throwing the ball, I think is going to, if that happens, then I can see how San Francisco loses. But on the flip side, I think if the Cowboys are going to win, we're going to have to see Dak ball out again.
Yeah, he has to. Like, because bro, Nick Bosa, who like I could make the argument if the MVP is not a quarterback driven award, I honestly would vote for Nick Bosa as MVP.
Or even Parsons. You have two guys that you
Yeah,
can make an argument for.
yeah. So I mean, it's quite insane the amount of talent that's on this field because you have a lot of good players on both sides of the ball for both teams. The only question would be special teams. Is Brett Maher gonna puke all over the field like he did? And then with the
How
Cowboys signing
crazy.
their kicker,
Yeah.
so oh man, we'll see. But if you had to put a score on it, what do you got?
I honestly think that this one's going to be not as high scoring as we expect it to be. I'll probably go 24-17 San Francisco.
24-17 San Francisco. Dang,
Yeah.
that's close. My score was 20-18 San Francisco. I don't think Dallas kicks
Okay.
the field goal. I think they go for two.
Okay.
Like in the first one,
I
they
could
get
see,
the
yeah.
8, and then they get 10 points throughout the rest of the game.
Okay, I could see that.
I could see like
I
one,
do want to see what happens with Brett Maher because I've never seen something like that.
bro, that he threw up all over that field.
Yeah, I mean it literally looked like he lost confidence, and then it's like, all right, is the guy that we think lost confidence, how is he going to react to them bringing in another kicker just in case? Like that wouldn't make you lose more confidence. Like, all right, they can say all they want about having your back, and we're there for this guy, and
And the
he's
video,
our
Dak
kicker.
saying, "Go for
Yeah,
two."
yeah, but now they bring in somebody that's essentially there to replace you if you miss another one. Like that's not supposed to make you question if your job is safe.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of good football this week and a lot of good football. But guys, before we go, I do want to pose this, and I'm going to read some of the names of the NFL Hall of Fame finalists because the NFL Hall of Fame is going to be announced soon. And every year, 4 to 8 inductees are inducted every year into the Hall of Fame. So, Myles, I'm going to read you all the names of the finalists on the ballot. You give me the 4 that should go in no matter what, and the 4 you feel like that are going to that will make it in, like, but not as close as the first ballot ones or other ones. So first name on the list, Jared Allen. Second name, Willie Anderson. You have Rondé Barber, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Albert Lewis, Darrell Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, and to end it all, Darren Woodson.
I mean, that's an impressive list of names. I mean, the first guy that stood out to me was Jared Allen. And so I'm looking at his football reference right now. 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All Pro, 136 career sacks in 187 games with 32 forced fumbles.
Yeah. I mean, that's also good, but then you have DeMarcus Ware and Dwight Freeney
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah, honestly, the pass rushers were the ones that stood out to me. As you were reading the list, I think the one that's the most locked that I don't think is really up for debate is Devin Hester because we all know he's the greatest at what he did.
Yeah, so you would put okay,
So I would
definitely.
put Hester because of what he meant for the NFL and for what he meant for the returning position.
All right,
So
so
I'd
the
put
3 other ones
Hester as a
that for
lock.
sure have to get in.
I would put DeMarcus Ware is currently 9th in career sacks all time in the NFL's list of all time sacks. He's at 138 and a half. 12th is Jared Allen at 136. And Dwight Freeney is at 18 at 125 and a half. So I'd honestly go Hester, DeMarcus Ware, Jared Allen, and then I got to think about it between Reggie Wayne. I mean, I really want to say Zach Thomas because he is a Dolphins guy. I don't know. Reggie Wayne, only 1-time All Pro, 6-time
Darrell
Pro
Revis?
Bowler. Oh, I forgot about Revis. Yeah, Revis is the last one for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because I was about to say, bro, like I was about to put Revis like automatic. But I would say my 4, I gotta go Revis,
Yeah,
Hester,
facts.
and I'm doing this one just for simple fact. This bro, this guy's been on the ballot long enough. Please put him in. Torrey Holt. Torrey Holt, for in an age where running the football was the priority, he put up crazy numbers as a receiver. So he deserves to get in.
But only
And
1-time All Pro, but 1-time Super Bowl champ as well. He's got a very similar case as Reggie Wayne.
yeah, and
13,000 career yards,
I mean, he was a
74
part of the greatest
touchdowns.
show on turf that featured him, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner. Like, there was a lot of football to go around. So I would say I would put Revis, Hester, Torrey Holden. Last for my guaranteed, I would put DeMarcus Ware. because I saw DeMarcus Ware his whole career. That dude was awesome.
Was a beast. And even towards the end of his career, when he went to Denver, he was still amazing.
Yeah,
Still amazing.
he basically trained Von Miller to be better, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And it's like, okay, cool, thanks, man. Like you really helped the NFL a lot, especially quarterbacks. Great job.
Yeah.
And then now for the four that like might get in, man, that's where I'm gonna say Joe Thomas, because Joe Thomas was an incredible offensive lineman. And then I will generally go Zach Thomas, because Zach Thomas has been on that. He's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, he has been.
So
Yeah,
I would
Joe Thomas, just for the people that aren't aware, 10-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, was a part of the All 2010 team, All 2010s.
Yeah, like so I would put Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, then I'll put Dwight Freeney, and then last one, I'll go Andre Johnson.
Yeah, I didn't know this. Andre Johnson is Andre Johnson is 10th all time in career receptions at 1,070.
Yeah,
His stats are very similar to Torrey Holt. So here, let me just pull up Reggie Wayne. He's 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ. Torrey Holt is 7-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ.
Wait, Andre Johnson won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, with the Colts.
Who? Oh,
over Hester.
No, that's Reggie Wayne. Andre Johnson, yeah.
I'm completely tripping here. So Andre Johnson's career numbers are 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. Yeah, no Super Bowl, but he is 1,062 receptions, 14,185 yards for his career, and 70 touchdowns. Torrey Holt is 920 receptions, 13,000 yards, and 74 touchdowns.
Very similar.
Yeah, super similar.
So I would go Andre Johnson, Torrey Holt.
And because Andre Johnson also never had a quarterback until the end.
Never had a quarterback. So
like Matt Schaub is the best quarterback the guy ever had.
So that would be my four that I think that will get in. I think should get in, but it'll be barely. Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, Andre Johnson. Yeah, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, and I'll go Dwight. I don't know if I said Dwight Freeney.
Yeah, Dwight Freeney is a lock.
Yeah, and I'll go Dwight Freeney.
Yeah, I think so too. Football is also interesting because it's not as hard as per se baseball, and it's not as easy as basketball, but it's also hard to compare the numbers because Andre Johnson is kind of in that in between where they were realizing, we can pass the ball more effectively. Torrey Holt is not in that era at all, but then the defensive players, obviously sacks mean a whole lot more. And then for a guy like Joe Thomas, I mean, he's an absolutely amazing player. He just played a position that not a lot of people are aware of. Who
on a terrible team.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. He was on the Browns for his entire career. So, that's the other thing. So, it's like, all right, I play a position that a lot of people aren't aware of who is truly elite, and I play on a team that absolutely nobody cares about.
Man, so yeah, I would say my Hall of Fame finalists, if I had to go 8, it would be Hester, Revis, DeMarcus Ware, Torrey Holt, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, and Andre Johnson.
Yeah, can't complain with that one. Can't complain with that one at all.
Oh, wait, no, Dwight Freeney and, switch DeMarcus Ware, Yeah, both of them still. So I would go with that one. But, man, I just don't know, because the Hall of Fame voting, I even have a problem with the Hall of Fame voting, because after what they did to T.O., when I was like, people, this guy's a Hall of Famer. Don't make him wait. It's always been my pet peeve with the NFL Hall of Fame.
It's because they, especially for football writers, they kind of hold it against you.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I understand the guy might not be a cool person, but let's take personality and off-field off the books. What did they do when they were on the field?
Yeah, 100%. That's how I agree too.
Yeah, but man, hey, this was good. At least we still got football.
Yeah, we do.
Still got football, but Guys, this was awesome. We can't wait. We will be back on Monday to give our reactions to all these games. Most of the time, this is usually the best weekend of football because all the games are always so close. And we're going to even do a little preview of the AFC NFC Championship game. We're not going to talk about the Pro Bowl. We're
Yeah,
just simply not.
I got no interest in that.
The Pro Bowl should not be talked about. It won't be talked about. We're not going to do it. We'll talk a lot about the games, but that will be it. And who knows? Maybe we'll try to get some other content for you guys. We might even try to bring in someone next week. So we'll see you guys on Monday, and let's enjoy this weekend of football.
Peace.